Charlie and a person from the rival gang head towards the riverbank. However, simply then Fusco gets a name and all of a sudden a person sneaks up from in the back of and knocks him out. Seems the person is in reality operating for Elias at the different facet. Detective Carter maintains following the lead, and soon Aurora later talks to the person who became chasing the witness these days. However, then she discovers the stunning reality that he's now no longer only a witness, he's Elias himself. In the meantime, Rhea is at the boat in conjunction with Charlie and the person from rival gang. However, the guy exhibits the entirety. He tells him that he is in reality supporting Elias in his very own manner, and at the beginning Rhea would not pretty get it really is, whilst Charlie all of a sudden pulls a gun on Rhea and orders him to drop his weapon and tie himself up due to the fact he's Elias himself. Elias then shoots the person with inside the leg and publicizes that the Brighton Beach territory now belongs to him. After that he turns to Rhea and gives him a task. He says that first of all he became making plans to kill Rhea. However, after seeing his wonderful abilities he has had a extrait of coronary heart. He wishes Rhea to crew up with him. He says they might do high quality matters collectively and perhaps even revel in later one in every of Elias's guys choices him up, and that they power off collectively proper. After that Elias's humans take over absolutely as they eliminate the preceding crime boss of the location. Day after today Finch informs Rhea approximately the following variety at the listing. The person's name is Wallace. As quickly as Wallace lands on the airport some guys are already there ready to comply with him. However, he cleverly evades them and slips away. Finch tells Rhea that Wallace is returning to the United States after 24 years. Curious to know greater, Finch visits an antique buddy of his additionally from Germany due to the fact Wallace additionally has ties to Germany. His buddy and Wallace had served collectively throughout the conflict there. Finch learns approximately Wallace is beyond task and additionally unearths out that Wallace's spouse had died in a twist of fate. After that tragedy his pals betrayed him and had him captured even as they all settled with inside the US. In the meantime Rhea discovers that Wallace visited a cemetery plot and there he unearths an antique coin, one of these uncommon kinds, which confirms that Wallace had truly been there. On the alternative facet Wallace meets one in every of his antique pals. However, in preference to reconciliation he kills the person for betraying him years in the past. Finch tells Rhea approximately the pals concerned and Wallace is beyond, so Rhea visits one in every of their flats, best to discover the person already lifeless. Figuring out time is jogging out they rush to defend the final ones. In the meantime Wallace meets every other one in every of his antique buddies at a eating place on the alternative facet. Rhea investigates the preceding place in which Wallace had killed one in every of his buddies. There he uncovers extra statistics, approximately the relaxation of the institution lower back on the eating place. Wallace makes use of a small sharp prick dipped in poison and discreetly stabs his pal with inside the neck. The person collapses proper there at the ground. Drez arrives simply in time and Speedy questions the death guy, pronouncing he can assist if he tells him what befell. The pal confesses that years in the past all four of them betrayed Wallace. They passed him over to the Americans who later killed each Wallace and his spouse. However, Wallace survived and now he's lower back to take revenge. After that Wallace is going to discover his 0.33 pal Finch had already referred to as this guy looking to warn and keep him. However, the guy didn't accept as true with Finch, and simply as Wallace is set to shoot him the person makes a determined telesel smartphone name. He tells Wallace that his spouse Anna is really alive before everything. Wallace does not accept as true with him. However, the guy proves it via way of means of letting Wallace communicate to her at the telesel smartphone. But even after listening to her voice Wallace is beaten with rage. He throws the person off a production constructing killing him. After that Wallace is going to Anna's residence. However, Finch and Rhea have already taken her to protection. Whilst Rhea returns to the residence Wallace ambushes him and knocks him subconscious. He then ties Rhea up and prepares to apply his interrogation gear, pronouncing that nobody has ever remained silent in the front of him. In the meantime Finch calls the detective Fusco and informs him to ship assist at once. Finch finally receives to speak to Anna and she opens up, pronouncing Wallace turned into usually buried in his paintings. He in no way cared for her and their courting slowly lost all love and connection. That is why she finally grew to become to the Americans for assist and separated from him. In the meantime at Anna's residence Wallace notices a picture. It is of a younger female. To his surprise he realizes that he has a daughter he in no way knew. Approximately simply as Wallace is set to kill Rhea, Fusco arrives in time and saves him. Wallace manages to get away. Later Wallace reveals his daughter and takes her at gunpoint to a close by park. There he forces her to name Anja and inform her to come to the park too. Whilst Anja arrives Wallace asks his daughter what she thinks approximately her father. She replies that her father died honorably for his U.S. Listening to this Wallace is shocked to look that Anna in no way became his daughter. Towards him she nonetheless holds recognize for him. Then Wallace turns to Anja and asks why she left him. Anja explains that their dating had misplaced all love. He had modified a lot as he's continually ate up via way of means of his missions. And he or she surely couldn't take it anymore as Wallace, crushed with rage, attempts to purpose his gun at Anya, re-arrives and shoots him simply in time. Finch speedily takes Anya and her daughter away to protection. In the meantime, Ray remains with Wallace and sits him down on a bench. He notices Wallace's gun. It is empty. Rez realizes Wallace in no way meant to kill Anna. He simply desired Ray to shoot him to give up his personal aches. Simply then the sound of gunfire attracts the police to the scene. As they arrive, Ray quietly slips away, leaving Wallace at the back of the episode. Starts evolved with a flashback to Carter's Beyond, in which she used to serve with inside the Navy as an investigating officer. She tasked become extracting the reality from terrorists and suspects. At some point of interrogations lower back with inside the gift, Detective Carter is speaking with Mrs. Kovach, a girl who yet again needs her abusive husband to be launched. Notwithstanding the reality that her husband has violently attacked her more than one time, she nonetheless pleads for his launch. Carter flippantly fingers her a card and says if her husband ever hits once more, simply name this wide variety anywhere she is, she'll come and get her safely. After that, Carter is assigned to some other case related to a younger boy who become these days shot and killed in a drive-by way of means of taking pictures. Whilst Carter sees the frame, she immediately acknowledges him. She says that 6 months in the past this equal boy had given a sworn statement towards a person named Hector. However, later the courtroom docket canceled that testimony. Now it appears Hector eventually were given to him. After that, Finch yet again calls Ree and informs him that this time the call at the listing is their mutual buddy Detective Carter. Listening to this, each of them become extraordinarily concerned, knowing that now even her lifestyles is in threat. Day after today, Ree follows Carter as she has breakfast together along with her son, then visits Hector's car save. Whilst she questions him, Hector claims he become together along with his female friend and refuses a seek without a warrant. Pissed off, Carter leaves. In the meantime, Finch plans to plant a surveillance digital digicam in the police station and begins evolved compiling a listing of threats to Carter. After narrowing it down, just a few serious suspects continue to be. However, Finch's largest difficulty is shielding Carter, despite the fact that she's decided to arrest Ray later. Carter arrests certainly considered one among her informants and questions him. Approximately Elias, he denies understanding whatever. However, she will pay him and tells him to live alert, promising extra coins if he reveals out whatever. Approximately Elias or Hector on the opposite aspect. Reese gets the toy from Finch, the only with the hidden digital digicam planted in it. Finch asks him to reposition the toy on Carter's table in order that the digital digicam usually remains geared toward her, letting them hold watch on her 24/7. Later, Carter questions the shopkeeper wherein the boy who become shot had closing stopped to shop for a soda. She urges him to quietly inform her if he saw whatever that night time. However, the guy refuses. He says that even supposing he had visible something, he could not speak due to the fact if he did, his lifestyles could be in risk. Then we flash again to the Beyond, wherein we see Carter for the duration of her time with inside the Navy. She is interrogating Yusuf, insists that he best provides veggies and culmination. However, Carter has intel suggesting he's worried with Al-Qaeda. Subsequently, Yusuf breaks down and concurs to present her statistics on one situation. He asks for safety for himself and his own circle of relatives. Carter guarantees him that she can be able to hold him and his kids secure again with inside the gift. Reese breaks into Hector's storage. He grabs some guns and drives off in a vehicle. In the meantime, Carter gets a name from Mrs. Kovach, who appears disenchanted. Carter rushes over to the residence and reveals Mr. Kovach already tied up. From the rest room, she hears Mrs. Kovach calling out, announcing she is secure now. Simply then recalls Carter. He attempts to reason together along with her and warns her that her lifestyles is in extreme risk. However, Carter nonetheless organization says she's usually recognized her task came with threat. Reese tells her this time it is exclusive due to the fact a person truly desires her useless hits, while Carter subsequently begins evolved to surprise that who gave him this intel. Reese tells her he simply desires her to live to tell the tale and provides that if she simply desires to carry Hector down, she wishes to recognize something crucial: he has an entire arsenal at his fingertips. After that, the police raid Hector's storage and discover a huge stash of weapons hidden in her. Later, Detective Carter subsequently meets her informant once more. He appears anxious and tells her he become helpless and apologizes. However, all of a sudden he pulls out a gun and shoots her. Fortunately, Ree arrives simply in time and shoots the informant. Luckily, Carter is carrying her bulletproof vest, which saves her lifestyles. This entire occasion triggers recollections of her days in Afghanistan. She recalls while her fellow squaddies knowledgeable her that they'd observed a few bombs while she asks approximately if her colleagues screen a harsh reality that they didn't shot him. In fact, he's become killed due to the fact he becomes suspected of being one of the enemy. Carter is shaken. She had made a promise to protect and his own circle of relatives. However, her teammate reminds her that by no means made a promise she cannot maintain it. Truly is the instant Carter Makes a decision to go away the Navy and be a part of the police pressure, hoping to discover justice on her personal phrases. Subsequent, we see Carter having breakfast together along with her son. Once more he asks her how she's feeling and she or he assures him with a grin that she'll be exceptional very quickly. Subsequent, Finch tells Rhea that 4 human beings have arrived at the listing: Ryan, Matt, Wendy and Paula. Reese says they all appear random, however Finch believes there need to be a connection among them. He additionally stalks that Ryan's quantity got here up first, so he might be with inside the maximum chance they want to behave speedy to shop the relaxation as quickly as Rhea reaches Ryan's condominium. He unearths that Ryan is already useless, but he alternatives up Ryan's TELSL smartphone and steps out of doors to speak to Finch. Says he does not need to lose the opposite 3 and cannot music all of them on my own. He insists that Finch additionally desires to come out into the sphere and says he will provide him a backup position. Asks Fusco to music Paula even as he follows Wendy coming across. She works at a parlor posing as a client. Rez attempts to technique her, however Wendy senses problem and escapes via the lower back. In the meantime, Finch tracks Matt, however his vehicle explodes earlier than he can intrude. Reese learns Wendy has gone domestic and follows her there, simplest to discover Paula already together along with her. The girls scream they witnessed in coincidence stays in the past and cut up a big amount of money with others. Abruptly a person bursts in and assaults Rory, fights him off, however with the aid of using the time he returns. Wendy and Paula have fled. Reese searches their residence and unearths a stack of sanatorium payments and letters. While Finch examines on the sanatorium, he unearths out that the girls' mom become these days admitted because of a damaged hip. Rhea assumes they could have used the cash to cowl the clinical charges, however Finch well-known shows that their domestic is closely mortgaged too and that they have been in all likelihood looking to repay their residence. Rhea then makes a decision to visit the sanatorium to test on them individually. Alternatively, the CIA officer Snow contacts Carter and asks her approximately she tells them she doesn't realize who he is. She says that guy as soon as stored her lifestyles, however she by no means spoke to him and didn't even see his face. Well, they warn her that he's extraordinarily risky and has killed many humans at the start. Carter would not accept as true with them, however then Snow palms her his card and asks her to tell them if he ever contacts her once more. In the meantime, Rhea subsequently arrives on the medical institution and speaks to Wendy. She tells him that the cash could clear up their issues, however now she realizes it turned into a mistake they ought to have simply referred to as 911 and left the scene at night time. Rhea asks her wherein the cash is. Wendy tells him the coins is hidden beneath her mom's medical institution mattress. She brings the cash and prepares to depart with Rhea. Simply then the killers kidnap Paula and ship Wendy an image teaching her to return back to the basement of the medical institution straight away. Rhea calls Detective Carter and informs her that the killers are on the medical institution, so she ought to come speedy. Carter thanks him, acknowledging that he currently stored her lifestyles. Wendy takes the cash to the alternate factor, however simply because the handoff is set to take place. Rhea assaults the person, he kills him immediate, then he returns the cash to Wendy and tells her to keep it due to the fact they did the proper component and now nobody will come after them. He urges her to depart speedy and live safe. In the meantime, Finch critiques the secret agent digital digicam photos and realizes that Carter has knowledgeable Snow approximately being on the medical institution. As Rhea exits the medical institution, Snow and Carter block his route with their automobile all at once. Every other CIA operative shoots Rhea with a sniper. Finch speedy rushes in with the automobile to assist him get away. Rez slightly manages to live on and attempts to escape, however Carter intercepts each of them. She holds them at gunpoint. After a second of hesitation, Carter makes a preference. We could remove expertise that he isn't the hazard they assume he's. Finch takes Rhea to a medical institution and will pay a general practitioner something quantity he asks. He begs him to keep Rhea's lifestyles. The general practitioner straight away plays the surgery and efficaciously stabilizes Rhea. In the meantime, Detective Carter, not able to apply her personal PC due to the fact the CIA is tracking it, logs into Fusco's gadget. She pulls up an image of Finch from the night time of the theft and lines his TELSL smartphone quantity from police fax. Even though the quantity is offline, she requests the telecom enterprise to offer all of the data related to it on the alternative aspect. Finch items Rhea a brand new rental while Rhea arrives on the constructing. A person named Traz, who handles the safety for the complete constructing, indicates him round and welcomes him. He tells Rhea that if he needs something in any respect he must simply permit him recognize simply. Then Finch arrives and indicates Rhea round the brand new rental. He says he desired to provide Rhea something great and additionally proportion something essential. He exhibits that he especially selected this vicinity due to the fact a brand new variety has arrived at the listing, and this time it's Traz's call due to the fact Rhea remains recuperating and sitting in a chair. He asks Finch to test Traz's rental. Whilst Finch is going there, he unearths dozens of pictures of a younger girl named Lily who lives in some other rental with inside the constructing it will become clean that Traz has been stalking her. After that, Finch investigates Lily and learns that she's a chef at a famous eating place. Whilst he assessments her domestic, he discovers that a person has hidden a digital digicam internal. He eliminates the digital digicam without delay to defend her privateness. Later he is going to Lily's eating place to preserve a watch on her. Whilst there, Fusco calls Finch and asks approximately Reese's fitness. He additionally warns Finch that Detective Carter is directly to them as she's pulled his whole vicinity history and is monitoring the whole thing. Finch evenly tells him now no longer to fear approximately, and after that Finch calls Carter and tells her that she'll in no way be capable of kill them due to the fact he modified their vicinity information in advance that morning. However, Carter replies that her intention became now no longer to kill Rhea, it became to trap him. She says CIA had brainwashed her formerly and she or he is on their aspect now. Then Finch tells her to appearance in the back of due to the fact he is sitting proper there. They meet at a resort wherein Carter without delay asks approximately Rhea. Finch assures her he is doing quality whilst Carter asks why he delivered her there. Finch factors toward a person and says his call is Derek. He is approximately to come to be a violent crook and Carter has the risk to forestall him before something takes place at the start. She unearths it tough to accept as true with Finch explains that due to the fact his pal is out of motion for a whilst she's the only who will need to step in and cope with matters now. With that he quietly walks away leaving Carter with a brand new cause. Traz meets Lily's intended boyfriend and threatens him, pronouncing he is going to kill him simply as he is approximately to behave. Ray reasons a distraction via way of means of lights a hearthplace close by. A crowd fast gathers forcing Traz to backpedal and live quiet. Later Rhea meets with Traz at his rental. He indicates him the pictures and holds him at gunpoint. Annoying the reality, Traz insists he has misunderstood him due to the fact he stole the one's pictures from a penthouse which actually belongs to Rick, Lily's boyfriend. In the meantime Finch confirms Traz's tale due to the fact he unearths hidden digital digicam evidence. Helping to declare on the equal time, Rick sneaks into Lily's room and attempts to force himself on her. However, simply then Traz and Rhea arrive. They each confront Rick and beat him up badly. With inside the warfare, Rick finally ends up falling out of the window. Later Lily tells the police that Rick were harassing her for a long term he desired up to now her. However, she had refused him oftentimes. He couldn't take no for a solution and commenced stalking her whilst he entered her residence. Matters got bodily and all through the scuffle she driven him which caused him falling out of the window. In the meantime Detective Carter maintains following the lead Finch gave her. She tracks the suspect to a bar as he attempts to kill a person. Carter storms in and catches him red-exceeded. The following day Detective Carter meets Rhea without delay. She apologizes to him and says she didn't understand that Snow might try and kill him. However, Reese asks why she desires to meet him with inside the first location. Carter tells him she has quite a few questions and if he simply desires to assist he have to inform her wherein they get all their data. Reese simply says that the best aspect Carter desires to apprehend is that this every time they get data approximately a person, that man or woman is both already in chance or approximately to motive chance. Then he arms her a small word and tells her that if she desires to assist them she have to check out this due to the fact her report is sealed. After that Rhea meets Finch once more and asks if he is aware of whatever extra approximately Andrea, whose call is the modern one, to return back up at the listing of humans in chance. Finch explains that Andrea has continually been a tough operating lady. She comes from a completely terrible historical past and has labored tough all her existence to construct a higher destiny for herself. He additionally well known shows that she took out pupil loans and is deeply in debt. Andrea is in courtroom docket representing a person named Terrence who's dealing with drug fees. She requests more time from the choose to provide a witness. After the listening to she steps out of doors and strictly tells Terrence now no longer to talk to anyone. However, Terrence nonetheless talks to his parole officer Dominic and insists that the medication are not his even though he admits they had been discovered in his location, so legally they are taken into consideration as later Andrea is going to look Chris to accumulate Terrence's blood check record. However, she would not get it due to the fact the machine is strolling too sluggish. In the meantime Rhea is retaining an eye fixed on Andrea whilst he receives a name. Carter on the decision says she's amassed all of Andrea's data and well known shows that Andrea has been a troublemaker considering formative years. She even has larceny fees on her report. Andrea, ignorant of that, is on her manner domestic whilst abruptly a younger guy factors a gun at her from in the back of. However, Reese arrives simply in time to prevent the assault. The gunman manages to break out. However, with inside the war, Ray grabs a steroid dose from him which is probably a essential clue. Reese bombs over the thriller steroid injection to Carter and asks her to discover in which a person would possibly have received it. In the meantime, Andrea arranges assembly of Terrence together along with his son. Terrence warmly tells the boy that he'll be out quickly due to the fact Andrea is assisting him lots. Andrea then shows they get his check accomplished from an impartial lab. When you consider that the outcomes from the authorities lab are coming in too slowly, Terrence concurs and thank you her, announcing he cannot pay her. However, he can at the least display his appreciation on the alternative aspect. Carter calls Rhea and stalks the viable place in which those steroids is probably observed. She additionally warns him to be careful due to the fact it is a fighter spot and she or he would not need him stuck with inside the center of whatever violent. Whilst Rhea arrives on the place Carter cited, he spots the identical man from earlier than he strategies and begins if evolved asking questions. However, the guy abruptly assaults him and a combat breaks out. The suspect attempts to break out, however, as he runs into the road a rushing truck hits and kills him immediately. Later Finch digs into the useless guy's identification and unearths out his call became Alonzo. He is an ex-con who served 3 years in jail. Although there is no direct hyperlink among Alonzo and Andrea, Finch discovers a sturdy connection that Alonzo and Terrence proportioned the identical parole officer Dominic. That accident is simply too huge to disregard. Then Rhea is going to satisfy Dominic. He unearths out that the officer has been taking big bribes from his parolees to hold them out of prison. Rhea confronts him immediately. A combat breaks out and inside seconds Rhea takes down Dominic. He then places him in his very own automobile, pours alcohol over him and anonymously calls 911, placing him up for a DUI. With that accomplished, Rhea quietly disappears from the scene. After this, Rhea begins evolved shadowing Finch once more. This time Finch's assembly his buddy Will, who's approximately to depart the USA for right. Later Carter calls Rhea and asks why he went after Dominic. Like that, Rhea explains the whole thing and says she wanted stable evidence. He additionally tells her their task isn't always over yet, due to the fact they nonetheless want to discover who attempted to have Andrea killed. Simplest with the aid of using locating that man or a woman can they truly shield Andrea in order that they dive deeper into the research. Then Carter calls Rhea once more and tells that she could not get whatever out of Dominic. However, Rhea's famous that he truly sold them time due to the fact whilst Dominic became on the station he sneaked into his residence and took his computer. Then again Finch checks Dominic's account statements and is greatly surprised to hear huge sums of cash coming in. Finch figures out that he receives paid greater on every occasion. One in every of his parolees is going again to jail, which means the greater humans he sends again the richer he receives. Finch additionally notices that Dominic hasn't obtained any fee but for Terrence's case. Because of this, that Andrea remains in risk. In the meantime, Andrea is at the library running on her case while a person attempts to assault her. However, simply in time Rhea arrives and saves her existence. Rez in the end explains the whole thing to her. She realizes that after she attempted to get the drug file in advance, the officer deliberately out of place her file. That makes her positive Terrence is harmless and she or he has to attain him. However, Rhea stops her and arms her a stun stick. He says she cannot move everywhere till they discern out who sincerely wishes her useless. He tells her to live secure at domestic and guarantees to go back as soon as he has solutions. In the meantime, as Carter digs deeper, she notices something abnormal, that each parole below Dominic's supervision is an unmarried discern, which means once they get dispatched again to prison their youngsters turn out to be in foster care and the foster device pays $800 a month in line with baby, so a person is making extreme cash off this. Rhea then realizes it is now no longer the parole fueling the scheme as it is the foster care device paying up. Carter provides that Dominic has been running with an organization referred to as DFS that is controlled via way of means of a pair named Mary and Paul. She comes to a decision to pay them a go to. While Carter meets Mary and Paul, she questions them, approximately the 6 foster youngsters below their care along with Terrence's son Jacob. However, she notices something suspicious as they simplest live in a one-bedroom condo, so she asks bluntly, approximately the opposite 6 kids snoozing area. The couple begins if evolved getting apprehensive. Finally they admit that simplest Jacob is certainly staying with them. One baby ran away and the relaxation do not even exist. Simply then Rhea receives a name from Finch and he tells Carter to allow the couple move for now. He is observed who's sincerely at the back of all of that is a girl named Gloria Copeland who oversees all of the personnel in DFS. Finch well known shows that Gloria is certainly the mastermind at the back of the complete operation. Rhea is presently following her and she or he appears to be heading in the direction of Andrea's place. However, at the manor Gloria suddenly stops to shop for vegetation, surprising Rhea. In the meantime, Andrea arrives at Chris's workplace. Another time she urgently asks him to name the choose and stop Terrence's jail switch. However, Chris coldly replies that he cannot try this due to the fact he turned into the only who advised the decide to approve the switch in the first vicinity. Andrea is shocked. It's whilst all of it will become clean that Chris has been running with Dominic the entire time. Chris admits that she's a notable attorney, however says it'll now no longer count anymore due to the fact nobody goes to discover what he is performed. He attempts to guide her right all the way down to the basement to kill her, however Andrea fights return. She knocks him down and escapes proper. Then Reese arrives simply in time. Chris attempts to run once more, however earlier than he can get a long way. Carter suggests up and arrests him instant. Eventually Terrence is freed and Andrea surely thank Yuri and the police for the entirety they've performed.